Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Pastor Ryan. We've got inclement weather, so there is no in-person service this morning, and we are doing everything online. We were going to be doing our Ask Me Anything service today, but I really just kind of like to do those live. I like for them to be an in-person thing where then people can kind of ask follow-up questions and really wrestle with the issues that we're talking about together in the community groups afterwards. And so we're going to hold off on that until next week. And so this morning, I'm going to do a kind of bridged version of what I would have been doing next week here in online form. And then next week, we'll do what I would have been doing this week, because next week we were going to be jumping into our new series called Spirituality for Normal People. What we're doing is we are picking up on kind of one of the threads from last Sunday's message. Last Sunday, we talked about something called following before you feel. You don't have to wait until you feel love for the Lord before you can start following Him. You don't have to feel all the right things right this moment before you can start pursuing the Lord. You can start now, because the majority of our life with the Lord is not spent on those mountaintop experiences that we have, right after some kind of Christian camp or big revival or evangelistic crusade or whatever. The majority of our life with the Lord is spent on the kind of flat plains, or in some cases the valleys way down. If you're anything like me, if you have maybe some kind of depressive disorder or something like that, you may spend a lot of your life with the Lord actually in those valleys where you are genuinely low for long periods of time. And the problem with that is that for so many of us, we've grown up being told that if we feel passionate about the Lord right this moment, that means our faith is strong. And if we feel low, that means our faith is weak. That if we feel numb, our faith is weak. That if we feel just kind of empty right this moment, that means that there's something really wrong with our faith, wrong with our heart. Depending on kind of the culture that you came up in, you may even have been told that if you're not white hot passionate right this moment for the Lord, then you're probably not even really a Christian. That's very much the message in a lot of kind of hyper emotionalistic churches and denominations and stuff like that. And the result is that a lot of us honestly just kind of carry a lot of fear, because the fact that we don't live constantly on the mountaintop means, as far as we're concerned, that we don't have what other Christians have. We don't have what those seemingly perpetually happy people in the Hallmark movies have. We don't have that just constant upbeat, relentlessly positive nature that all the Instagram Christian influencer types seem to have. And it genuinely worries us, and it makes us feel genuinely less than. It makes us feel like our faith is not real. But what we're going to be talking about throughout this series is that is where real faith lives 90% of the time. Faith is not feelings, just like facts are not feelings. Feelings are good. Feelings are important, and feelings will come, but they are not the heart of our faith or our life with the Lord. Your feelings will go up and down throughout your life, but that tells you nothing about where you stand with God. And you don't have to wait until you feel those mountaintop feelings to start your journey, or to start it again, or just to continue it without fear, without guilt, without worry. And so we are not going to talk about spirituality for Instagram influencers who have a permanently Botoxed smile on their faces. we're going to spend the next couple months talking about spirituality for normal freaking Christians. But we want to start in a really specific place. I want to talk about Psalm 1. We're going to spend most of this series breaking down the Psalms, not all 150 of them, because that would honestly probably kill me. But we're going to go in really broad strokes. We're going to talk about things at kind of a 10,000 foot view. But I want to start with the first Psalm. Psalm 1 says what I think are some of the most important and beautiful sentences in the entire Bible. Listen to what Psalm 1 says. It says, "Blessed is the one who delights in the word of the Lord, who meditates on the word of the Lord day and night. That person will be like a tree planted by springs of water, who brings forth their fruit in due season, whose leaf will not wither, and whatever they do prospers." That's Psalm 1, verses 1 through 3. And the reason that we're starting with Psalm 1 through 3 is because it's a prime example of what I like to call just do it spirituality. This is just do it spirituality. I'm going to explain what I mean in just a minute. But just do it spirituality is the kind of spirituality where you don't wait for any frills. You just do it. You don't wait for any big thing to happen. You just kind of jump in. You don't look for any one particular thing or any one particular feeling or any one particular sign or anything like that. You just jump into the swimming pool and start swimming, and you just trust that you're going to know how to swim somehow. You dive in for the triathlon before you take swimming lessons. I think Psalm 1 is a pretty round debunking of some of the really common misconceptions that we walk into our spiritual lives with. One that I have always struggled with is the misconception that says, if I'm not motivated, it would be fake to pray. If I don't actually feel like praying, it's just a ritual. If I go and I pray without actually having any kind of passion in my heart driving me to do it, then I'm just saying some empty words. I'm just pretending. I'm just putting on a mask. It would be fake to pray. It would be fake to read the Bible if I don't actually feel like it. That's one that I have struggled with for a really long time. And so for a long time, what would happen was that I would not feel like praying or reading scripture for a week, so I wouldn't do it for a week, or I wouldn't feel like it for a month, so I wouldn't do it for a month. I wouldn't feel like it for 6 months, so I wouldn't do it for 6 months. I just kept waiting until a day would come when suddenly there'd be wind in my sails again, and then I'd start again, but that day wouldn't come for half a year. So I would spend half a year just kind of disconnected from the Lord, which is wild, because if I just didn't feel like talking to Elise for a week and I didn't talk to her for a week, we would have like a very misshapen relationship, right? If I just didn't feel like talking to my son for a month, and so I just didn't talk to him for a month, he would have some pretty serious daddy issues at the end of it. We fundamentally understand that you talk to people whether you feel like it right now or not, because you maintain those relationships that you have regardless of your feelings in the moment. And yet when it comes to God, we have it in our heads that we can't maintain our relationship with him in any meaningful way unless we desperately want to in the moment, desperately feel like it in the moment. We say, oh, if I don't feel like it, then it's fake to do it. No, it's not any faker than talking to your spouse when you would rather be alone. In the same way, one thing that I've always kind of struggled with is the idea that if I don't feel love right now, I must be a hypocrite. That if I start praying, but I just kind of don't really feel anything towards the Lord, I don't really feel any love, any affection, anything like that, that I'm being hypocritical even talking to him at all. That's another one of those things that I think it kind of got burned into us by really heavily emotional, revivalistic type preachers and teachers and books and stuff like that. But that's just not true. Um, there's nothing hypocritical about going and talking to a God you just don't feel anything for right now. This comes back to really the same thing as the first misconception, and that's that God is a person. When we act like we can't spend time on our relationship with Him during those seasons where we don't really feel anything, then what we're doing is treating the Lord like He's not really a person, but He's a real person. He's as real as your spouse. He's as real as your kids. He's as real as your friends. He's as real as the closest person in the world to you. He's as real as you. Your relationship doesn't stop existing when your feelings simmer down. And the third misconception that I fall into a lot of times is that if it's not a perfect quiet time, it doesn't really count. That if I sit down to have like a quiet time to, read some scripture or pray for a little bit or whatever else it looks like, read a devotional, read a Christian book or whatever, right? That if I have a hard time focusing while I'm doing it, then it was a failure. Or that if I just don't really feel like I'm getting anything out of it right now, it's a failure. That if I don't have a swell of emotions every time, or at least, once a week or something like that, that it's a failure. That if it's not a perfect quiet time, it doesn't count. But once again, what is a quiet time? A quiet time is literally just time you are spending, just you and the Lord. One of the things that Elise and I try to do every day is we try to have a little bit of time, just the two of us, a little bit of time without Seth. Now, he may or may not let us do that, depending, right? A little bit of time without Guinness, our dog, a little bit of time without either of our parents, a little bit of time without either of our friends, just the two of us, just talking about something. Sometimes we're talking about some big serious thing that's happening, at our workplace, some big serious thing that's happening at the church, some big serious thing that she's worried about, that I'm worried about, or that one of us is really excited about or interested in or something like that. Other times it's just 30 minutes of me telling her some stupid joke or something like that, or it's just an hour of showing each other memes that we found separately over the past few days since the last time we've shown each other stuff. Other times we just do this thing where it's like I'll start telling her a story and I'll just be making stuff up as the story is going along, and I'll just try to make the story as insane as I can, as stupid as I can, or something like that. Sometimes we'll just look back through old like text message conversations we had back in like 2016, which good Lord was 10 years ago. Back when we first started dating, just kind of reminisce and stuff like that. And so sometimes the 20, 30, 40, whatever minutes that we have just kind of earmarked for each other is really nourishing. It's really enjoyable. It's really exciting. Other times it's just not. Other times it's just mundane. It's just kind of boring. Some days we're hanging out and she doesn't really think anything that I say is funny. Some days we're hanging out and I'm just not that interested in what her coworker did. Some days we're hanging out and there's just not that much of a spark. But those days are not failures. Those days are just as important as the days where everything feels great. Our relationship is still growing on the days where there's not some powerful spark. It's just as meaningful, just as important. That is the lifeblood of any relationship, whether it's a marriage or a friendship or whatever. That is like the water that the roots of our relationship sink down into and then drink from. And that exact same thing is true of our relationship with the Lord. The term that the old-time theologians used for this is spiritual formation. Spiritual formation basically deals with the fact that we become what we repeatedly do. We become what we repeatedly do. Psalm 1 describes this in terms of walking. Psalm 1 says, blessed is the one who does not walk the way of the wicked, but instead walks in this way, meditating on the word of the Lord day and night, drinking from the stream that is the word of the Lord. It says essentially Christianity is not just a philosophical system. It is not just a way of life. It is not just a set of beliefs. It is a path that we walk. And the thing about walking is that it's something you do continuously. It's something you do repeatedly. It's something you do one step at a time. We are walking with the Lord. And the sum total of our lives as Christians is we walk with the Lord day and night, day and night, day and night. And as we are doing that, he is spiritually forming us. He is feeding our roots by the stream that is his word. But here's the really important thing that comes with this. Our starting point is often not that joy that we associate with those mountaintop experiences with the Lord. Our starting point is often feeling spiritually dry, feeling distant from the Lord, feeling uncertain. That is our starting point 90% of the time. And so the question is, how do we build a spiritual life when this spiritual dryness and distance and uncertainty is where we start? The answer is by showing up. That's it. It's by showing up without the feelings. I think John 15 puts this perfectly. This is Jesus talking to his disciples. This is on the final night of his life. He says, abide in me and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. The one who abides in me and I in him will bring forth much fruit, because without me, you can do. Now, this is important for a number of reasons, but here's the big one. Jesus does not say, try harder to feel love for me. Try harder to be passionate about me. Try harder to feel really strong spiritual stirrings. He says, abide. He says, stay with me. Stay connected to me. Stay present with me. Keep showing up. And the result is that fruit will grow. What does that mean? What it means is that Jesus describes our spiritual life with him as basically exactly the same as a normal relationship with any other person, just magnified to infinity because he is the infinite God. What am I talking about? Here's what I'm talking about. All love that actually endures and lasts is built by repeated contact. You do not see someone once, fall in love, never see them again, and have a really deep relationship with them. You just don't, right? You maybe fantasize about them or something like that, but that's just not the same thing. Real love is built by deep familiarity. You see each other again and again and again and again, and your love grows deeper, not just more intense. It's built by shared experiences, right? You go through things together. You experience life together. You become partners together. Real love is built by commitment to each other. Committing to each other actually deepens your love. It does not extinguish it. There are people out there who are like, don't get married. It just ruins everything. Those people are idiots. Commitment does not kill the vibe. Commitment sweetens your relationship if you guys are actually both committed. And love is built by the kind of trust that comes from consistency. Year after year with someone that you have genuinely committed yourself to, who has genuinely committed themselves to you, devoted themselves to you, that you've shared your life with, builds trust. The conflicts that you experience along the way actually strengthen your bond. They don't destroy it unless you decide you can't deal with conflict and you throw it away. One of the things that any marital counselor will tell you is that process of rupture and repair actually forms a sturdier relationship if you both seek repair. But the point is, this is what real relationships actually look like. Real relationships are not a 100-yard dash that just kind of burn themselves out really quickly and then you've got to move on to a different one or else you will die inside. Real relationships are a long cross-country jog. And in this long cross-country jog, what happens is that love grows over time. Now, I actually hate this example because I'm just not a musical guy. I just don't really like musicals. There's a handful that I will tolerate, but it's not for me, man. It's just not. I was a theater kid back in school, and every year when it was musical time, I was never excited. I mean, I was always in them, but I just found them annoying. I was like, man, this would be 45 minutes if we didn't randomly start singing everything all the time for no reason. But this example's from a musical. If you've ever seen Fiddler on the Roof, I'm not going to walk through the entire plot of Fiddler on the Roof, but in Fiddler on the Roof, there's a couple of characters named Tevye and Golda, and they are, peasants back in the olden days when most marriages were arranged. And so Tevye and Golda have this arranged marriage. They did not get married because they fell in love and, just burned with passion for each other and wanted to spend the rest of their lives together and so on and so forth. They got married because their families determined that it would be in the best interests of the two families for them to be married. Affection had nothing to do with it. Love had nothing to do with it. But they've now spent decades together, working alongside each other, helping each other with different things, sharing each other's burdens, committing to each other, and so on and so forth. She has cooked for him every day of her life. He has broken his back out in the fields to provide for her every day of his life. She's sacrificed things for him. He's sacrificed things for her. They've raised kids together. They've poured everything they have into serving each other and caring for each other. And one day, as they're just talking in the middle of their conversation, he says, "Do you love me?" And at first, she doesn't even understand the question. It's never even occurred to her before. She's never even thought about this in her life. It's literally never crossed either of their minds. Do I love this other person? That was just not something that they thought about. And yet they sit there and they start talking about the past few decades they've spent together. And over the course of this song, it's a really annoying song. Sorry for any Fiddler on the Roof fans, but over the course of this song, they slowly come to the realization that they love each other. This really deep and enduring and nourishing love has grown between them through just the ordinary faithfulness they've shown to each other through the years. And the song climaxes with her saying, "Yes, I love you." They did not start off in love with each other, but they grew into love for each other through the years. That is exactly how it goes with us and God. He has loved us from before the foundation of the earth, but we learn love for him slowly through a life together with him. This is going to sound really weird, but it's normal for you not to really love the Lord right now, because this love for the Lord is something you are growing into. Your affection for the Lord will grow as you continue to engage with him, do your life with him over time. Love for the Lord is really not something that just sweeps over you and takes control of you and drives you to go do all these things. There's a number of people who are just especially spiritually sensitive who seem to work like that, but that is not how it is for most of us. Love for the Lord is something you cultivate, and the way that you cultivate that love is by showing up again and again and again. Not by showing up and putting on a really spiritual face, not by showing up and saying a bunch of really spiritual sounding words, but by showing up honestly. You are actually cultivating your love for the Lord little bit by little bit when you show up and say, Lord, I am here. Help my heart. Lord, I want to want you. Lord, I don't particularly want you right now, but I want to want you. Lord, I don't particularly love you right now, but I want to love you. I don't know if you've ever thought about it this way before, and maybe this is going to sound dumb, but this is true. Wanting to love the Lord is loving the Lord. Wanting to want the Lord is wanting the Lord. And showing up day after day, wanting to want the Lord, wanting to love the Lord, that is choosing to love. Love is a choice that you make, and this is what that choice looks like. And when you make that choice day in and day out, the Lord pours out his power to build love into you from the inside out. I think the best way to put this is the way that Philippians chapter 2 puts this. Paul says, Beloved, just as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but also in my absence now, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who is working in you both to will and to do his good pleasure. Essentially, what he's talking about is as you show up, regardless of how you feel in the moment, God is pouring into you. One way that you could say it is that because God works in, you work out. He works in you and you work out. He supplies you the desire to do his will, and then you follow through on that desire by doing his will. He supplies you the power to do his will, and then you follow through on doing his will by the power he's supplied you. And in very much the same way, he is working in you to cultivate love for him. And then you act on that love. And that means that what it actually looks like to have a spiritual life is that day after day, you take the next faithful step and trust that God is at work inside you through it. That's it. Take the next faithful step and trust that God is at work inside you through it. And that means start small. I'm really serious. Do not turn this video off right now and just say, okay, I got it. Cool. Awesome. And then go make a big plan for everything that you're going to do over the next 10 years to cultivate your spiritual life. Do not do that. Start small. This is one of the most important things that I'm going to say in this whole video. And I waited for the end. I buried the lead, but I'm serious. I am 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 serious. Start way smaller than you think you should. Whatever you have in your head right now, cut it in half. Start seriously small. When Psalm 1 says, Blessed is the one who meditates on the word of the Lord day and night, it does not mean you need to go live in a monastery where they literally wake you up every single hour so that you can pray one of the Psalms or something like that. No, What it's saying is scripture becomes part of your regular life rhythm. The word of the Lord becomes part of your regular life rhythm. Spending time with your Father becomes part of your regular life rhythm. It doesn't mean you section off as many of your minutes as you possibly can. What it means is you use the minutes you actually have, which is probably very few. Here's the one sentence breakdown, I guess, that I think sums almost all of this up. Consistency beats intensity, period. Consistency beats intensity every single time. One of the best books that I've read over the past few years is a book by a guy named James Clear. It's called Atomic Habits. It's the book that like every single podcaster that you listen to has talked about reading. I don't know if any of them actually read it. I have no idea if Joe Rogan actually read Atomic Habits, but you should. James Clear talks about something called the 2-minute rule. And the 2-minute rule is actually like life changing. Like the 2-minute rule has genuinely broken down a whole lot of barriers for me, just in a lot of different things. I lost 50 pounds in like 6 months, and I wasn't working that hard. And it was because of the 2-minute rule. That's one example. But the 2-minute rule essentially comes down to this. It says, you want to start a habit in a version that is so small, you'll actually do it. 2-minute rule says, the only thing that really matters when you are trying to build a new habit is the first 2 minutes. If you get the first 2 minutes down, you're fine. It says if you want to start working out, do not start working out for 30 minutes a day. You are not going to keep doing that. You are going to stop after a couple of weeks. That's why everybody gets a gym membership on January 4th and they stop actually using it in the middle of February or March. It says if you want to start working out, do it for like 2 minutes a day. If you want to start reading books more, just don't go buy a giant book, right? Don't go buy Wayne Grudem's Systematic Theology. Say, I'm going to read this in 3 months. No, you are not. Start reading about 2 minutes a day. Literally, just get a book that you want to read and just read for about 2 minutes. And when you stop feeling like reading it anymore, just put it back down and stop. But come back again the next day and read for about 2 minutes. If you want to read for longer, cool. If not, stop after the 2 minutes. And then the next day, come back again and read for another 2 minutes or so. And the next day, come back again and read for another 2 minutes or so, and so on. The point of the 2-minute rule is the entry ramp should not be like this. You are not going up this entry ramp. The entry ramp should be like this. The point of the 2-minute rule is that there is basically zero resistance when it comes to a 2-minute commitment to do something. A 2-minute rule makes it almost easier to actually start than to avoid it. The 2-minute rule reduces decision fatigue. You don't have to plan your whole day around it. You have to plan 2 minutes around it. The 2-minute rule makes consistency way more doable, and it makes intensity way less of a concern. The 2-minute rule makes it easier to create momentum. The 2-minute rule forces you to start small. These small moments are the start. Over time, they can expand into something deeper, something longer, something bigger. But the big hurdle is actually not how long you do your quiet time, how long you spend with the Lord, how long you read scripture each day. The actual barrier is whether you do it or don't. The biggest hurdle is jumping from 0 to 1. And once you get past that hurdle, everything else is so much less of a problem. I know that this sounds really weird. This sounds probably literally just dumb. This sounds fake, but it is way, way easier to go from spending 2 minutes with the Lord each day to spending an hour with the Lord each day than it is to go from spending 0 minutes with the Lord to spending 2 minutes with the Lord. Again, sounds fake, but it is true. That is literally true. That is not an exaggeration. It is way easier to go from being someone who spends 2 minutes every day with the Lord to being someone who spends 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, 2 hours than it is to go from being someone who spends no time with him to spending 2 minutes. That is the hurdle. And the reason that is the hurdle is because your Relationship with the Lord is rooted not primarily in your habits, but in your identity. Right now, your identity is, I am someone who doesn't really spend any time with the Lord most of the time. That's your identity right now. That is the identity you have signed yourself up for. And every single day of your life, you live out of that identity. But if you spend 2 minutes with the Lord every day, then your identity is, I am someone who seeks the Lord every day. And if you spend 2 hours with the Lord every day, your identity is, I am someone who seeks the Lord every day. There's a difference in time, but there's not a difference in identity. The fundamental change that happens is the change in identity. That small consistency builds a new identity for you, and that changes everything. I think the best example I can think of for what this small consistency looks like, for what the 2-minute rule looks like, is J.B. Hunt. Naturally, J.B. Hunt just passed away. He's somebody who had a really big impact on my life. He's had a really big impact on the lives of so many people here in Franklin County, and especially so many people here at Mount Zion Baptist Church. But one of the things that I always found really incredible about JB is he didn't look anything like what you think of when you think of the, like high and holy, hyper spiritual, ultra Christian type person. JB was a normal guy, but he was a normal guy who radiated the goodness of the Lord. And one of the reasons for that is because JB was emblematic of a just do it spirituality. And you can see that, I think, more clearly than anywhere else in the way that JB spent time with the Lord. The way that JB did his quiet time is probably not what most people would expect when they think of how to have a quiet time. JB read through the Bible start to finish at least 11 times throughout his life, and he brought just about every issue he was facing, decision he had to make, struggle he was going through, tragedy he was enduring, and so on and so forth, to the Lord. And the Lord was his strength through all of it. But the way that he did that was strange. When he told me that he had read through the Bible 11 times throughout his life, I said, wow, how'd you do that? And he said, well, I spend a lot of time on the toilet, and I keep my Bible on the back of the toilet. So every time I go to the bathroom, I would read a little bit out of the Bible. And you do that, it doesn't even take a year. I said, I have to try that. Every time JB went into the bathroom, amongst all the other things you do in the bathroom, he was also feeding himself with the Word. He would just read like a chapter. And when he was reading that chapter, sometimes it would get him thinking about things, and he would just kind of ponder those things. When he was reading that chapter, it would sometimes draw his mind to what he was going through at the time, what he needed the Lord to help him with at the time, what he needed from the Lord at the time. And then he would just start talking to the Lord about that. Literally every bathroom visit became an appointment with the Lord. Some people maybe think that that's just like not holy enough, not spiritual enough, not whatever. But here's the truth. The best spiritual practices are whichever ones you will actually do. I'm serious. There's just not a one-size-fits-all set of practices for everybody. There's a lot of different practices that I would recommend. Some of them work really well for you and not you. Some of them work really well for you and not you. Some of them work really well for me and not Elise, and so on and so forth. The best spiritual pattern is whichever one you will actually do. The best way to spend time with the Lord is whichever way you will actually do. And 90% of the time, the way that you find those pathways is to start super small. Make an extremely small commitment that has an extremely small ramp. The place you start is something like open the Bible and read 10 verses. And after you've read those 10 verses, close your Bible and go do something else. Then do it again, then do it again, then do it again, until opening your Bible once a day and reading 10 verses is as normal to you as breathing. It looks like pray one honest sentence every day, and then go do something else, and then do it again the next day, and do it again the next day, and do it again the next day, until praying one honest sentence every day is as normal to you as breathing. And sometimes it literally just looks like listening to one worship song that doesn't make you cringe so hard you want to jump out of your body. Listen to one worship song attentively, like listening to the lyrics and thinking about them. And then when the song is done, go do something else. And then do it again the next day. Do it again the next day. Do it again the next day, until sitting down and listening to one worship song attentively each day is as normal to you as breathing. Over time, those things can grow into something more, but they will grow into something more at their own pace. And there's not a ticking clock. There's not a timetable. There's not a gun to your head saying, do more. Your life with the Lord is something you are invited to, that He is cultivating in you, one piece at a time. It is a gift for you to unwrap, not a burden hanging around your neck. And so the pathway into building a nourishing life with the Lord is not filled with complicated bells and whistles. The pathway begins with just do it. And we're going to talk more about what that looks like in the coming months. We're going to talk about spirituality for normal people. That is all that I have got for us today. But we will pick it up here again in February. If you are watching this video and you are not a part of our church, you're not a part of any church, you've been looking for a church, maybe you watched this on a whim, maybe somebody shared it and you saw it or something along those lines, and you are interested and you want to know more, comment here or reach out to me. Follow our Facebook page, send us a message. I respond to everything that we get and read everything that we get. I would be glad to talk to you about any of these things or anything else that is on your mind or your heart. But between now and then, I love you guys. Take care.